Alright, welcome to another episode of Seeds of Music, the web's #1 resource for independent artists. I'm your host Kyle Williams, and this is our weekly web show where I bring on successful independent artists to talk about the ways in which they build a bigger, stronger fan base and sell more music online and at their shows. Now, we do have an iTunes podcast version of the show that you can subscribe to. You just go to iTunes and search for Seeds of Music Rise Above the Noise, and you can click subscribe and get all of the episodes downloaded automatically to your device. And if you are so inclined, please leave a rating and a review for the show. The reason I ask you this is because this will help improve our ranking in iTunes, giving the show more exposure, helping more artists, and getting bigger and better interviews for the show. So please, if you have a chance, subscribe, leave a rating, and a review. And if you do, I'll give you a shout out in the next episode just to say thanks. On today's show, we have Danny Fiorentini from Musique, the online platform that makes booking a gig super easy. Okay, I know that a lot of you have to book your own gigs, and maybe some of you do have a booking agent who does that for you, or a manager, or maybe just a friend. And I know how frustrating it can be to be communicating back and forth between emails and phone calls, but mostly emails with these venues, and trying to organize everything onto your own calendar, whether you write that on your wall or you use a Google Calendar or maybe iCalendar in order to do that. But the thing with Musique is it's a platform that's making it easy to get those gigs and to plan it out, and they even handle all of the payment and the paperwork for you. So it virtually eliminates all of the BS that you have to deal with going back and forth with these venues on your own. So we're going to have Danny on the show, and he's going to talk to us about how exactly all these problems with booking are being solved on his platform, Musique. We'll talk about how it works, how much it costs. We'll talk about how an artist can have success with this platform with their booking, and we're also going to talk a little bit about Danny's story and how Musique was born, because the cool thing about it is Musique is formed by 4 guys, one of which actually one of each of them are representing different corners of the music industry. So you have a music fan, you have a musician, and you have a venue owner, and so on and so forth. And I just think it would be awesome to share that story with you as well. So I'm going to quit talking here, and we're going to jump right in. All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Seeds of Music. On the show we have here Danny Fiorentini. Shit, I should have asked you how to pronounce that first.
That was right.
That
was
right?
Perfect.
All right,
yeah, that was perfect, man.
Usually I'm lucky with that. Like I'm the type of guy that I can see a foreign word and kind of fake it, you know. As long as I'm not sounding insulting if it's a French word, and then I sound like a dude from Monty Python, like one of those guys, one of the French soldiers.
Right? Yeah. No. That was it. Actually, you nailed it.
Right on. So, yeah, I just appreciate you taking the time to come to this interview. I know you're giving up some 9 a.m. surf time over in Australia, which I know is, you would only give it up for the most important of tasks, hopefully.
That's right. Important tasks and no waves, so it was all good.
All right, cool. So it all worked out. It's a win-win there. So Danny, I just want to hit up real quick a bunch of different points on this platform, Musique, that you've built, and then I want to talk more about your guys' story, because I was looking at your website, at your About Us page, and I thought that was really awesome how you all of you just kind of serendipitously met and then pulled this platform together. So so for the first question, what problem that independent artists have with booking are you trying to solve with Musique?
Yeah, and it's actually kind of a problem that is distinctive to regions of the world, but it's also spread out from the basement artists to the agencies, the biggest agencies in the world. They all sort of have an operation. So it's either a bedroom operation that starts from, literally people with email, like someone like me back in high school or college, with emails and Google Calendars, spreadsheets, and just trying to research venues and regional venues in the area and beyond, all the way up to an agency. They're sort of just not enough hours in the day to accomplish the goals of finding the right venue, negotiating prices and rates, travel costs, expenses, and all of that is sort of in this fragmented space. There's really not a streamlined, or wasn't a streamlined method to contact a venue with relevant info, and then execute a process.
Hmm.
So what we like to say is that there is a lot of different websites and catalogs and places of destination that focus a lot on the contact. So you can contact anyone now through Twitter or Facebook or email or
Yeah.
but there wasn't actually a process mechanism to help that.
So
So
maybe just
the,
like to put it to put it simply, it's like this. It's what I'm gathering is it's a platform that just makes it easier for like the artist, the performer to book the shows, and it's easier for the bookers or the venues to find people to play,
right.
and they get paid, and to get paid for it. The artists get paid for it.
Right, and
Um,
even the agencies, if there was agencies using us, they, are representing an artist, they can use us too. So it's really taking what, everyone's sort of doing on all levels of the industry and simplifying it, to a process that makes sense, in this day and
yeah.
age, I guess.
Yeah. So it's like pretty much what's out there right now is just all screwed up and all of a mess and takes up too
Right.
much time and clutters your inbox. But music is just like this one place where you can go and you can sign up, and I know that that artists sign up is free
Right.
for
Yeah.
artists.
Yeah,
Um,
in reality, and going back on the last point, an agency is just that, is a team of people that sort of take care of all that crazy work that you normally wouldn't be able to take on, and assuming that the artist is a right fit too.
yeah.
So when we were thinking about pricing, we knew that the artist is, and I hate saying this word, I don't want it to come off like that, but the artist is the art, right? The artist is not, but the product, I guess, would be the art, the artist. The artist is the artwork, the art form that people are seeking. So we didn't want to charge the people making the art. We wanted to charge the talent buyers,
Hmm.
the people that are booking that because they're interested in, throwing a party and having live
Yeah.
entertainment. So the
Selling
artists are actually
alcohol and
free.
drawing people in. Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
because that's the whole goal, right?
Hmm.
So, an artist is free to sign up. We don't charge an artist. We might have cool, crazy premium features down the road that, like Bandcamp does or something like that
Yeah.
for distribution. But yeah, they can sign up a profile and it's free to use, and the bookers pay the fee on top of the fee that's charged to the artist. So we don't even take anything from the artist's pay.
Okay. So how exactly does the service work? Let's say that you've got an artist who's wanting to set up a couple show dates, locally. Maybe not like a huge tour, though they could do that. They sign up for free for music. What's their next step?
So, the profile for an artist now becomes their electronic press kit, because
Okay.
electronic press kit is really kind of the thing that you need and you've always needed. It was before a physical press kit or a press pack, and now we're able to pull in essentially their social life, their entire digital representation of who they are as an artist is now pulled into this profile.
So like
Um,
Facebook and Twitter, you're saying
right,
is in there too, so they don't
right,
have to set up
exactly.
anything extra, or just gets
That's
all pulled
exactly
in.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, so you just type in your usernames for your various platforms like SoundCloud or Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and we'll display sort of the following. Later on, we'll even get intricate to like following in the area, that sort of thing.
Okay.
And now this press kit is a profile by which you could present to venues. So as you would normally with an email and kind of a paragraph and links to YouTube, this sort of automatically updating press kit is dynamic in that you can now present that and it will be relevant to the venue.
Does a
And we
venue have to be on Musique in order to see the press kit for an artist?
So to see the press kit, no, they don't. The press kit is just like a web page that you could show anyone, like a
Okay.
Twitter account or something.
Okay.
Um, you can make it private if you want, obviously, but the venue, so you can use that for the contact if you want.
Okay.
But the venue, yeah, to make the booking happen through Musique, that's when the venue would have to have a profile on Musique too. So that's our main job and our main goal is to show that the venues are receiving value and benefit from the back end of Musique and the functionality and the optimization and the streamlining. So, 90% of the time you're getting artists requesting two venues, but there's a very, very good quality, chance that venues are actually seeking artists. And instead of charging those artists to apply, we're allowing sort of the data algorithms and kind of more like a smarter search to happen to find the artists and the venues that makes sense for each other.
So say if an artist wants to set up you know set up tour dates or not tour dates, but set up some shows in Irvine, California, or whatever. I just pulled that. I'm not saying anybody wants to play there.
Irvine.
Anybody doesn't. Irvine. Yeah. Was that Pablo Francisco?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's I just randomly thought of that. But so what does most people do? They go on. Most musicians will go on to Google and they'll punch in venues in Irvine or whatever.
Yes.
So
Yep.
they can just go into their Musique account, okay, and search for venues that are on Musique within Irvine or whatever specific city. So there's that power to just like be able to
That's correct.
look exactly where you want to go tour. Because obviously, if you want
That's
something you play in the tour, you want to be able to really
Right.
pick it out.
And not only that, I mean, if you were to do it on Google, you would then come to an individual website with then an email, and then you would email that person about dates they have available, and then you would write a paragraph and have a like your little sales pitch. And it was just very clunky. And so
Yeah,
with
slow,
right, slow
yeah.
and just time consuming. So with Musique, when you're quite literally surfacing venues in the area, you can send multiple relevant sort of booking requests to these venues through a mutual calendar. So you're actually
Can you
seeing
send it
their
in
events.
bulk, like with
Um,
one email, or do you have to do it
so
separately?
no, you have to do it separately. So we are gonna, we don't want spam and that sort of thing with venues and bulking.
Yeah.
So, we do have some tricks up our sleeve with sort of like um, smart limitations. If, for instance, one of the things we're working on is if you send, let's say 100 booking requests in a month and none of them get answered,
Okay.
that you have that limitation. But if they get answered and you get booked, then they're not counted against the limitation.
Yeah.
So smart things like that. But so you're sending the booking requests through a mutual calendar, because if the venue's using us, they're booking and they're updating those dates not only to display to fans, but also for their own back end. And when you click booking requests, you're not asking them for dates that are already held or dates that are already booked. And you can
Okay.
see, hey, we're both mutually available here. We're crossing paths in Irvine on our way to San Francisco or something.
So is it like a
And
online? Is it like an online calendar, kind of like a Google Calendar, where you just see it and then
you
the
can select a
events?
box.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there like a box pops up. Like if you
Yep.
send like a request to some venue, and then that pops up there, and then you know if they accept it or not. How do exactly do artists get paid in this process? I mean, do they get to pick how much they charge, or does the booker have control of that?
Yeah, and the art form of negotiation is sort of kind of the best part of the music industry in general. I think it is an art form, so there's different prices that people will pay at all times, and so we're always going to leave that in the hands of the two parties. So, there's a few ways that you can go about it on the platform. An artist requests a booking to a venue without payment. So you don't say, hey, give me $1,000. You
Hmm.
just you request a booking on a certain day, or hey, we're interested in this day. And then you can like negotiate in the chat how much you would do. There's also a mechanism where it says make offer. So the venue could actually make an offer based on the
Okay.
relevancy of the electronic press kit, but bands they've booked in the past. We show where the band has played before, who they've played with, so it makes a lot of more sense, and they can make smarter decisions. But we'll allow the booker to and the artist to negotiate that, and then determine a price. So when the payment happens, the venues determine their own terms. So if they say, hey, look, we only pay 2 weeks after the show, or
Okay.
or 30 days after the show, they actually put that in the back end in their settings, and then the artist then sees that on display when they first interact with them. And then maybe if there's a venue that pays 7 days after the show in the same area, they can choose that venue instead, or
Okay.
so it's sort of just creating more transparency, more so that it is putting more restrictions on people like that.
Is there any kind of protection in case there's for the artist or booker in case there's a dispute?
Yeah, so we actually have, so we allow them
A bunch
to,
of armed thugs will show up.
yeah, yeah, no, Rocky and Moose, yeah,
I know.
they
I
have,
watched the video link that you put up from from
yeah,
that
Caddyshack.
film. Yeah.
Yeah, it was awesome. So we actually went through a lot of debate with this, and we actually quite literally have just received our terms and conditions back updated to post the next week. So we're allowing the artists, the protection is basically a social reputation until there's an actual dispute, and the booker can pay the fee because we have two options. So it's either subscription or there's pay as you go. If they're on a pay as you go and there's a dispute, the booker says, I'm just going to pay the fee to dispute this because the band showed up with two members. They were both drunk. They both broke a bunch of stuff for
Yeah.
2 hours and then they left. Vice
Rock and roll.
versa. Right, exactly. Vice versa, if the artist shows up and the venue doesn't pay them, they're legally obligated to pay an accepted booking on Musique from, like, on a legal standpoint from our platform.
Hmm.
So the protection is there for non-payment for sure of negligence on either side.
Okay.
It's just about whether when the payment is disputed, we take in consideration disputed payments and we'll make a decision on what we think should happen, and that's I guess legally binding in that it will help the decision makers. But we kind of want the disputes to happen because it will surface people and will surface statistics and social reputation about people on the platform that may or may not deserve the business.
Hmm.
So I think there's a important part of disputes that we'll leave to the parties, and there's a important part of disputes that you say, okay, they owe us $1,000, they didn't pay, but our platform will actually legally, like a PayPal or something, we can extract those funds based on a confirmed show or accepted show. So there's I think the perfect balance of protection.
Okay. Yeah, because I was wondering because a lot of artists have problems with kind of sharky promoters, that
Fully.
and yeah, especially especially in
But
well,
and you
it's
don't
anywhere,
really.
not just Los Angeles. I'm not going to pick on
Yeah.
Los
No, it's
Angeles, but
everywhere.
yeah.
And it's everywhere, but most importantly, they're hard to pick out. If I were to go to LA and try to put on a show, I have no idea who's good and who's bad.
Yeah.
And I can very well work with a bad promoter. And there's bad artists too. And
But
so
in
there's
this case, music has the social indicators like you have
right.
some way of telling like this dude sucks because you can see there'll be some kind of icon or
non-payments
or it'll tell
yeah.
you on their profile, oh, this dude doesn't promote worse shit or
Right.
Whatever, and you get that kind of feedback, and so now
Yeah, and
people
we
have
didn't
to
want to make it
Yeah.
like eBay, sort of like Square, kind of like 5-star ratings. But we have the mechanisms in place to where, as a musician or a venue, you're going to be able to see kind of who's the right people to work with and what their past reputation is. Social reputation is like a currency now. It's so important to sort of have that. In check especially on the internet with virality and stuff. So
Yeah.
that's going to be a very important part of music, I believe.
Yeah, you could be internationally famed as a douchebag in
Exactly. 10
with
minutes.
a couple clips. Yeah, just it spread, and and then you're screwed for a lot.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's good because it's one thing that I have not seen in the music industry and for quite some time is accountability. Accountability for results when it comes to live shows and getting stuff properly promoted. And a lot of times, I'm just going to go on a rant. A lot of times, promoters, they guarantee themselves a certain amount of money, but they're not doing the footwork. So in that way, music is kind of like a bastion that will protect, allow artists to finally really book those shows and get them properly promoted, because that promoter doesn't doesn't do what he needs to do, then he's no one's going to work with him, you know. And so
Right. And there, that's everything right there. And then the vice versa, and the flip side, there are incredible promoters and incredible artists that are just getting shunned for no really relevant or valid reasons besides they just haven't been surfaced correctly or they're not represented correctly.
yeah,
They're not playing in front of the right crowds.
yeah,
So it's kind of all kind of the Wild West still. And we like to say that the music industry, the recording industry has evolved so much in 10 years, and the
yeah.
booking industry sort of has been left in the dust while Spotify and RDO
Yeah,
and
everybody's focusing on
fighting over digital.
distribution. Yeah, because they're pretty much like that whole idea of of still like selling records and selling the music itself. Like people are really trying to figure that out, or maybe not figure it out, or just trying to keep the status quo up. I mean, I kind of think of some of the music streaming services that are funded by venture capital from like large record labels that they secure most of the profit from their back catalogs that they stream on there, and it's kind of like,
Right,
well,
right.
they are. I mean, I don't get me wrong, I love Spotify. I've discovered a lot of artists through it, and I've even gone to shows specifically because Spotify's Discover tab told me that there was a show that they were playing nearby soon. So there's something
Right.
to be said there, but that right there isn't the focus of stuff like that. So the thing I love so much about what you're doing is that you're focusing on a ignored area. And yes, not every artist can tour or play shows all the time to make all of their income from. I mean, musicians have to diversify their income from many different sources. I mean, you can't tour forever, especially if you're an artist and you want to have a family eventually. But what you're
Right.
doing takes like a huge headache out of it, because you go on, create this like profile, it's all set up for you and it looks really awesome. I mean, we'll link up the site below, so guys, when you're watching, you can go and you can check out the video that they have that explains everything. You can see it. It's a really awesome interface, and then you just have this calendar interface. You search for the venues, you can get in contact with them, you get your shows lined up, and boom, it's like all in the calendar for there. And so the last thing, the next thing I want to ask you, not the last thing, because we got so much more I want to talk about, especially
Yeah.
we
No,
got
and
to
it's
talk about some bodyboarding in the Gulf Coast versus Australia, which is probably no competition. But you,
but and also, just to go off your last point too with the show thing is, we were at a very interesting panel at South by Southwest, and they were talking about, basically squeezing the last penny out of consumers for like distribution and how do we make the last dollar out of these fans that are looking for music. And
Yeah.
When I kind of spoke at the panel on a question, I wasn't on the panel, but I sort of was just stating to the panelists is, you're never going to squeeze another dollar out of the consumer if you don't optimize your current processes within the industry, right?
Sounds kind of messed up though.
It is. It is. That's right. Yeah. So it
Squeeze
sounds.
money.
Yeah, right. How do you extract like another cent out of these streaming services when
Yeah.
if they just simply optimize their existing processes, and that's what we're doing with booking,
Yeah.
you can pass that savings on not only to yourself, but to the fans that are going to the shows. And so that's what our biggest goal is, to optimize everything, trim the fat, and then you can pass the savings on to the fans and stuff like that.
And
So
you're definitely doing that, especially because
thank you.
you run all the payments through PayPal, and I bet 90% of the musicians out there know what PayPal is, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
even easy to set it up. I mean, shit, you can get a payment just by going on a PayPal and then putting in someone's email address,
Right.
and then
It's
just
amazing.
send the
That's
payment
great.
to them, and they have invoices set up in there. Which, speaking of invoices, how does Musique handle like the paperwork end of this? Because obviously you have when the bookers sign up, they are binded by the terms that they agree to when they sign up, that they have to not to pay if they say they're going
Right.
to pay. But what about like how does the taxes part and like all that paperwork?
Yeah.
You handle all that stuff?
Yeah, no, so it was funny because the culture that I was used to in Reno and Las Vegas, there was very little invoicing in and out. It was mostly like, here's cash at the door, whatever. And when I came to Australia, it was very, very much invoice based. You play a show, you invoice them 7 days after, and they pay you. So we built a system as soon as it's accepted. no money moves unless they choose to pay half up front or 20%. So like an artist can say, we require 20% up front for travel costs or something.
Okay.
And you can pay that at that time. Otherwise, Musique allows you to accept an offer, and then according to your payment terms, if it's 14 days or 7 days after the show or whatever it may be, you can choose a manual payment or an automatic payment. If when that happens, an invoice or receipt we're just going to call them receipts, is automatically generated for both parties, and then it's stored in your back end. So then
Can you explain what back end is? Because I know you mentioned the word several times,
yeah.
and a lot of musicians might not know what that means exactly.
Yeah, just basically your settings for your dashboard on Musique. So everything
Okay.
that you have control over of your Musique dashboard, there's a place where your receipts for shows are going. So we're going to do a lot of cool things like integrate with accounting platforms to just automatically talk to them for larger operations. But for smaller operations, you quite literally just download all of them at the same time at the end when it's tax time or whatever it is, and you
Yeah.
have them all in sort of a zip folder that you can apply to whoever's doing your taxes. And then, additionally, we even have there in Australia, it's called GST, which is just a sort of a general tax for businesses doing and trading and stuff. So we dynamically set if there's an Australian business venue and doing an Australian work with an Australian band, it will automatically sort of display what the taxes are. But if it's an American band in Australia, won't have to deal with that. So it's a very dynamic sort of process that we're creating the platform to do. But then the taxes is all just sort of, it's still your responsibility to do your taxes, but we have all the records of
Do
everything
your
happening to you.
taxes.
Yeah,
And the
do your
IRS
taxes,
is gonna.
guys.
Well, if you're in the United States, IRS is gonna come
Right.
after you.
Yeah, yeah. And even here, I mean, we just met a venue the other day that they have massive tax implications after misfiling tons of invoices and not doing them correctly, and quite literally, Musique, just that feature alone, Musique makes sense for them. So it's kind of one of those things that just keeps it all in order. There's nothing you can duplicate. It's impossible to do
Yeah.
with double bookings and that sort of thing. So
Basically, artists can, because there's a lot of independent artists that are truly independent. I mean, they don't have, anyone on their team or a team at all to help them, but they can. But for those that have someone on their team, maybe even a friend or family member, they can hand off their Musique account to to them, and they can just act as their, promoter or their booker,
accountant.
accountant, and keep
Yeah,
track of all that
yeah.
stuff. And because it's easy enough that anybody can understand it, whether you're, the artist itself or the artist's mom or a cousin or whatever.
Right, right. No, and that's it. That was a big deal for us. Our design and our user experience is huge. There's a lot of uh, things out there that are just so hard to navigate through, and we wanted to make it sort of this Apple-esque approach where you know how to use it as soon as it comes out of the box,
Yeah.
and and still keeping it relevant to the music industry, like very music industry focused. So a lot of small bells and whistles that we have put
Yeah.
into the platform would only make sense for music. So
Yeah.
definitely exactly that. My mom is my accountant for my label, so I literally just would give her logins for any of the artists that would do bookings or whatnot, and
Right on.
she can see everything that's going on.
That's awesome, man. So, I wanted to talk more about like your background with music, man, because I mean, it's pretty interesting how you've gotten to the point where you formed this formed this team for music. So, what's your story, bro?
Well, so it was funny because my brother and I have been doing music since high school, and I was just reminiscing on some old inspiration songs back in the day that we were listening to.
Like what?
And this morning, well, I got into hip hop from like everything from Hieroglyphics, and Dell was like the first underground stuff, to like obviously Wu-Tang and
Oh, you
stuff
mean
like
Del, the
that.
funky Homo sapien? Is that what
Yeah,
you're talking? Okay,
yeah.
gosh, yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah.
so we would, in schoolyards and rap battle and stuff like that, and never really took it too seriously until when we got to college and people were actually really liking what we were making.
Okay.
And I worked at a bank at the time, actually. Like I was just out of high school, and I played baseball with a kid whose dad worked at a bank, so I just got a job there, and I
Yeah.
actually stayed there for about 4 years. But I just really sort of saw kind of what was actually happening with the bank and kind of didn't really, I felt responsible for some of the, financial
Yeah,
collapse that was going on.
yeah, yeah,
So, the music side of me was such a, weird dichotomy because I had this, going to the bank in a suit, and I'd come home and like be the complete
yeah,
opposite,
yeah, yeah,
and kind of just be who I was or whatever. So I took the red pill at like 22 and was like, just wanted to start working for myself and started a label and just started waiting tables at
yeah.
PF Chang's
Right
actually. And
on.
yeah, and there was probably like literally
Yeah,
30 of us that were all friends there. It was a great group of people. And,
yeah.
most people saw that we were making music and started a little label or whatnot. And we, signed, a few artists and invested money into their albums. And we had a studio and stuff. And,
Was this all hip hop acts or
well, we
specifically?
had three. Well, we started as hip hop. We have a rock band called Moondog Matinee who are phenomenal. They were sort of just, we've been huge Led Zeppelin fans when we were little and with my parents and stuff. So they sort of reminded us of that really kind of cool rock, like that not kind of the 90s kind of cliche rock, but
Okay.
really psychedelic kind of bluesy progressive stuff. So we actually got involved with them and put their album out. But then as a label, we were dead broke, poor as can be, not only in college and paying for college,
Yeah.
but now we had these like huge burdens of recordings and studio time and that sort of thing. So I quite literally sold my car to finish their album. I was like, I'm just going to go to Australia. For some reason, it's just calling my name, and nowhere else in America was really calling my name. And so when I moved here, I was sort of not all, I was still, moving with the label in mind, but I was also going, there's got to be an easier way to do to make more money for the artists that aren't just recording costs or making money off sales, because this is when the music industry had just exploded and the pieces were falling, and we were trying to figure out how do you sell albums now? Is it only streaming?
Yeah.
Like, do you have USB drives,
Yeah.
shirts and stuff that have seed cards
Yeah.
attached to them? So it was kind of this like, where's the money? I was like, the money is live performances right now. And
Hmm.
how does live performances happen easier without, um, externally like offshoring it basically to whatever agencies we can. So I met Dave, and I were just friends from a group of friends, and he uh, has run some of the biggest clubs in Australia. So he's just getting involved with another venue here soon. And so he experienced that pain on the other end. So he experienced, theoretically, he would get my emails every day pitching artists that would come in, have great performances, ones that come in with bad performances, losing money, not enough hours in the day to actually accomplish what I was theoretically trying to do on the other end too. And so we just, over a case of beers one night, he came home. It was like probably 2 in the morning when he got home from his, and I was sleeping on his couch. I was actually in between houses
So you were keeping
at
it
the time.
raw, man.
Right. I was,
Yeah.
top ramen, instant coffee, still on the label grind.
Yeah.
Here I am with two bachelor's degrees, a master's degree, technically
What
my
were the
own
degrees
business.
in? What were your degrees in?
My first two were in business, so one was in marketing and one was in business administration. So
Okay.
that's why, and when I started a business, I was like, all right, well, I want it to be a record label. So
Okay.
the degrees were sort of like my coffee mugs that I, just something that represented that I can finish something, but it wasn't anything that I sort of was like needed or I thought that was like determining the direction of our
Yeah,
label.
yeah, yeah. I feel
And then
yeah, I have
my
pretty strong opinions too on college education when it comes to the
Right,
business.
right. It was more the networking. It was more the
Yeah.
social interaction and the connections. And then when I went to graduate school, I literally just did politics. I did international relations just because I wanted to talk about something new and then go home and do what I felt the business would be fine with.
Yeah.
MBA didn't make sense for me.
Yeah.
Um, so, and here I am, I'm sitting here, I'm like going, you know, there's got to be better ways to do this sort of thing. And here I am, this traditionally sort of American grown, college educated person, and I'm still in that fight, in that battle of like, I'm bartending on the side, trying
No, I
to
feel
pay
you,
my
man.
rent.
I've done
Yeah.
I've done busing before. I worked for very briefly at Abercrombie and Fitch. I'm embarrassed to admit that, but I was there for like a month, and then I was like, I can't do this, man. This
Yeah,
feels
yeah, it's so
horrible.
template and
Yeah, it's
right,
just
right.
yeah stuff. No, I'm really relating to what you're talking about right now. But continue.
Yeah, thanks. And bartending was actually something that was pretty fun. It was nightlife and stuff like that. We met a lot of people, but
Hmm.
and then literally just that night over a case of beers, I was like, I think the couple days before that, I was like, hey man, I really think you'd like something. And I really think you'd be interested in something that I, have been thinking about for some time. So that night was when we really hashed it out, and it's right here framed in a piece of paper was the first time when we sort of wrote down everything we thought the name would be. So you can see like a musique like in a few different words and fonts and like textures.
Is there a bumblebee up there?
Yeah, there's a bee. Don't
Okay.
mind the bee.
Oh yeah, I was like, I could barely make it out, but
That was actually like one of the random doodles on there, but that was so there's like musique in a bunch of different ways, and Dave at one point just said musique to like seek music or something like that. But when we
not the
said it, we were
French accent that you
right,
described.
yeah, exactly. So I was like,
Music.
what? What was that? And then he's like, musique, musique, and then we said it, and we're like, oh, that's cool, and it was cool because we didn't want it to be like sort of another gig booking sort of like cliche thing. We want it to be something that we felt like we would use, something that would spoke kind of not so appy and trendy. So that when that happened, we were in right away.
Yeah.
I was like, we need a certain amount of money that we can just put in just to start us up. And the next day, so that was a Sunday. And the next day, I started my new role with Vice. And the first day, they're like, "Oh, we're going to sit you next to Todd. He's our digital operations manager. So he does like some of our design and stuff like that." When I sat next to him, I knew instantly he was in a band. And turns out he was in three. And so he used to be signed to Epitaph and stuff. So
How is that
without,
possible to
right, I
do
was
all
like,
those things?
right, exactly. I'm like, you have these talents in all these other areas, and it's crazy how you're able to accomplish this all. And he'll be on a plane to tour in a city, and while he's working on design, and then he'll be back in this next city at 9 in the morning, and he's really good like that. And but anyways, before I knew all that, he was basically like, hey man, I'm going to Vegas in a month for some, with some of my bandmates and stuff like that. And he was like, which hotel should I stay at and stuff like that. And I was like, honestly, I can give you some advice, but I think I want to pick your brain too, because I have an idea that I think you'll like with music. And it was within like 5 hours of us meeting.
Hmm.
And he gave me this sort of, oh, yeah, all right, And then a month later, when after he left and he came back, I don't even think it might have been before he left. Dave and I just got him in a room and we're like, hey man, just check this out real quick. And he was light bulbed and he was like, yeah, man, this is awesome. I'm in. And then my roommate, Mike, he was like, hey, I think I know a developer. We make fun of it because he said he was like, he's a bit of an older guy, but he's good. He's good,
A
and
bit of an older
and we're
guy.
like and we're like, oh man, we don't want to really have an old guy on our team. But we met him. His name, it was a Vice photo shoot. I mean a show. So like a guy was displaying his artwork and his photography, and we literally was like, hey man, this is Roll, and we're like, hey, how you doing? We'd love to chat, and we have an idea. And we didn't know this at the time, but he was actually going through a lawsuit with his second startup that he did development wise. So he's been burned twice. So he's been burned on like, I'll code for equity only, and then getting fed the sort of dream.
Yeah.
And so we didn't know this, but he was in the middle of his sort of like, okay, I'm done doing that. But he's so good. He was at a major telecommunications company as a senior systems analyst and engineer. So when we met him the second time, or the first time, we got the vibe that he's like, yeah, yeah, cool. I'll listen to your idea, man. Like, why not? Whatever. They're all the same. And then we sat down with coffee, and he was like, do you own the domain Musique? And we're like, we're in talks of getting it for really cheap. Like, this guy just doesn't even want it anymore. He's just going to give it to us. And he's like, do you realize that the word musique, and he's Belgium, so he's like, in Belgian, the word musique is the word music. Like, you guys are just saying the word music, and it's like that's such a really good domain name. And we're like, yeah, well, let's do it, And he's like, all right, I'm in too. And we're like, and so at the time, it was such a it was such a big deal for him, but we didn't know that. So we were just going on it like these, kids with a dream,
Yeah.
as you do. And he's not even that old. He's 35, right? 35, and he's young. I mean, he's younger than all
We
of
don't
us
want
at
some
heart.
old dude in our team.
Man, he parties more than us. I
Yeah,
mean,
right on.
so it's cool. And so that's how the team really fell into place. But we also sort of wear these different hats because I had startup experience and pitched in front of investors and
Yeah.
multiple times. And Dave has been not only running the venues, but he's been doing like the financial kind of operations behind it, budgets and revenues and costs and stuff like that. And then Todd, with his design and his artist experience, we're really, and then Roll, he's been to more shows than we've put on together. Roll goes to every show, DJ set that you can possibly go to, but then he'd come home and sit in his cave and code, like a madman. So we sort of all had these different perspectives that really made sense on what does music need to be, and not just kind of how do we make money off an app. Like we were all actually pissed off in a certain way because we were like, Roll wants to know where the shows are at the specific time, and how do I know about them, and how do I get more shows? Dave's like, how do I book easier and save money? And Todd's the same way. So it was really one of those cool situations where like just when a band kind of aligns and it all kind of makes sense on different instruments, I think that's how we sort of say that how we formed. It was kind of
Yeah.
like it was supposed to happen.
Well, it's like everybody coming together for like a common mission or message, and everybody has their own unique skills and talents
Yeah.
and backstory to bring into it. So you have, like it says on the website for Musique, you have the label owner, the booker, the artist, and the fan.
Right, right, right.
So
So it made sense and it was cool. And we would do it, all the best sort of companies evolve from something that you want to do yourself. So,
yeah.
we wanted this to work and we wanted it for our own operations. So obviously a lot of people related to that. So it was pretty cool.
Okay. Well, awesome, man. I had to share that story because I thought it was such a cool
Thank you.
story.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sometimes like I do these interviews and I feel like I'm relating a lot to it because sometimes speak to other young entrepreneurs. But in a sense, if you're an independent artist, in this day and age, I kind of think that you're sort of like a miniature entrepreneur, at least in the sense that
Fully.
you're building like a platform around yourself, around your music, and learning different skill sets beyond what
Fully.
your main one is.
There's actually not a single difference between starting a band and starting a business. And there was a really good article that Motherboard did, which is a Vice affiliate.
Hmm.
And I've been trying to sort of say this every time we sort of get in a room and we are, coding or developing something new or a new idea.
Yeah.
A band is identical to that process and making sure the right people are in the common mission and different
Yeah.
skill sets and people in the band that are doing things that other
Yeah.
people can learn from. So I very much compare that too.
Yeah. So how in your opinion, like how essential do you think it is for musicians to learn new skills that might be out of their comfort zone and a little uncomfortable when it comes to growing their music career?
Oh man, I mean, I have a transitioning opinion on that actually. I believe that the artists need to at all times understand how things work, but not necessarily get their hands and feet dirty during once they do understand. So,
Hmm.
what I mean by that is we very much learned from an artist and a label perspective, starting the record label, that we needed to understand the industry 100% before we could even have an opinion on something.
Hmm.
But once we did understand how it works, it's important for you to recognize that that can be changed or that doesn't have to be a certain way. And we were discussing this when we first jumped on the Skype call. Musicians often have this sort of opinion of the music industry is like, this is just the way it is, and that's just how it works.
Yeah.
So they fall into this line of the skill sets that I need to know, somebody else can do them, and I can just rely on my booking agent, and then it's business as usual, or my record label and my PR, my publicist, and business as usual. But once you understand the industry and you understand that it's just human relations and it's just business, as if I were to go to a store and buy a Snickers, there's no difference than the art form and the business of the music industry is processed and manufactured in the same way, but that can be changed.
Hmm.
So when we were starting music and we were starting a label, the label was very much, we were privileged enough to be awarded for kind of our business plan of a label because we were saying, since the internet and publishing sort of exists kind of internationally and globally, there's really no reason why a label should go, we've, created this album, funded this album, go over to iTunes and buy it,
Yeah.
because that's kind of like McDonald's, like to create a hamburger and they tell you to go somewhere else to buy it. It doesn't make sense.
Hmm.
So similarly with booking, it was really kind of like once we understand booking, then we throw up our hands and we go, well, why is it like this?
Okay.
And very few people sort of uh, do that and then carry over with making it change. Why is it like this? And you can
Yeah.
get mad and angry, but you
Yeah.
can go, why is it like this? And make sure that people aren't just in this sort of template kind of
Or just like
manufactured
disempowered.
process.
Yeah. Or just
Yeah,
like
yeah,
disempowered mindset. Because it's I mean, it's easy to complain. It's easy to think about things in a negative sense. But even for people who holds, like, especially musicians that hold all these negative opinions, there's still huge gaps in what they know about how the music industry is actually working today. I mean, huge gaps.
right.
They have the stuff that they do know, like some know how to get an album recorded and deal with like the engineers and all that shit and getting the CD press. But then when it comes to other elements, like they're not experts. I mean,
Right.
they don't have a full understanding of that. So it's easy from a place of ignorance to just be like, well, it's all screwed. So whatever.
And on top of that, where my transitioning opinion sort of evolves too is that, however, they just want to be artists, and that's what is important. You
Mm-hmm.
know, the artists just want to write, they want to create their art, they don't want to worry about it. So before, I think that worry turned into, well, there's a system in place and I'm just going to throw my stuff into the system and it'll do its magic. But if you understand the system and be an artist, you can change the sort of mentality. And there's a lot of obviously huge pioneering artists from Radiohead and Flaming Lips do a lot of crazy recording scenarios and show scenarios and
Yeah.
that sort of mindset of it. We're artists, but we understand the system and we're not necessarily abiding by it, or we're even getting our hands dirty. We're just working with the people that also know how it is, and we can just now be artists and create art. And we
Yeah.
don't have to worry about do-it-yourself sort of projects in that way. So in the mentality of like, I have to do this myself, it's more so making sure that you are aligning yourself with people that are in that same mind state
Yeah.
too. So
Yeah.
it's a very much an opinion that I still think artists should be artists. They shouldn't have to worry about an industry, because the industry of music is only 50 years old. I mean, or 50 to 60 years old. It's very new to sort of create this bubble of like selling music and like creating profits and stuff like that. So the industry is the new thing that sort of ruined the art form of music. So artists just want to be artists, but if there's an easy way to sort of make that happen, then they should understand it too.
Yeah. Well, I think for a lot of artists, it comes down to having the unwillingness to learn at all. I
Mm,
think that it's kind of like you can go up to any successful artist, whether they've had success without a label or they've had success going the do-it-yourself path, which a lot of the successful musicians who are do-it-yourself musicians, they're not doing everything themselves. They're educated enough about the basics of how to build a fan base, and how
mm,
to run a successful tour and how to sell music and how to sell merchandise. They have a basic understanding, so much that they can take that and find reliable people to bring on their team who also understand that, because they can keep that person in check. It's like, oh, this person's not
fully.
being BSing me, because I'm not ignorant about how that works.
Right. I mean, Macklemore and Ryan Lewis are a perfect example of people that say, "Oh, they didn't have a label, and they didn't have a label, but they had a group of people." That's what a label is. So a
Hmm.
label, whether or not you slap a business name on it or not,
Hmm.
that's who you're supposed to be dealing with. And how do I get my artwork
Hmm.
and how do I get my art to the people that enjoy it faster and easier? and
Yeah.
inexpensively. So the label terminology, and that's why Outbox is sort of this amoeba that kind of moves in between the cracks. Is kind of like it's just a group of people that have a plan that
Hmm.
say, here's how I think your artwork works best. And so if music just aims to be a tool for that same group of people, that same process to be an easier method to accomplish those goals.
Yeah, right on. So yeah, it'll fit for anybody who's either has like a team already or doesn't have it.
Right, exactly.
Either way, you have to be in order to use it successfully. You know, to be able to remove your headaches with booking your shows, you have to be open to at least using the platform and learning its basics. And even for something like that, which is
Right,
great, it's been made easy to learn. Um,
right. And as an agent or a manager myself, artists can choose to uh, just and they can decide whether that makes sense for their careers. Music is going to be there as a tool for anyone, and if someone is good at their job, they're just going to embrace this tool to continue it and optimize their processes, and
yeah,
then ultimately, hopefully, optimize their relationship and the cost that they do with the artist. So an artist can choose whether or not that's important to them. So.
yeah. Well, Denny, it's been like an awesome interview. Thanks again for coming on, despite all the Skype problems and interfering with your morning surf. Even though there wasn't any waves,
Yeah, no
pretty sure
worries.
it's like a morning ritual for you to get the day started. So it's super super important. So thanks
Yeah,
again
I'm
for taking
trying.
the
Yeah,
time.
absolutely. Yeah, the ritual is certainly Dave making pulling me directly out of my bed into the car to go for a surf. So I'm glad I didn't miss any waves today.
Okay, well, right on then. We'll talk again sometime about my trip out to Australia, and you can watch me get thrown off my bodyboard, and everybody can laugh at me.
Yeah, absolutely,
I don't
man.
know if you guys have bodyboarders out there, but I'm pretty. But
Now we do. We
okay,
we we run them over though with our
yeah,
surfboards. So be
exactly. I knew
careful.
it. I knew it. It'd be like running me over. Okay, all right, cool, man. I'll check you later.
All right, cheers, man.
And that wraps up another episode of Seeds of Music. Make sure to check out Danny's links below. Check out Musique. If you get headaches all the time just at the thought of having to book your next couple of gigs or even booking a tour, check out Musique. That's really going to solve that problem for you. And if you haven't yet, sign up for our email newsletter, the Seeds of Music email newsletter. You'll get updates on new interviews, vlog episodes, and articles, plus special newsletter content to help you build a bigger fan base and sell more music online. And also, we have the podcast. Make sure to head over there, subscribe to that, and leave a rating and a review. Please, that would help out so much if you leave a rating and a review. If you liked this interview, like it on Facebook, share it on Facebook, and tweet it out on Twitter to anyone you know who might benefit from knowing about Musique and the services they provide. And lastly, comment on the video. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. If you have an idea for someone you would want to see on the show, just comment there. If that person is you, remember, you can contact me at kyle.seedsmusic@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you, love to hear your story, where you're at, and where you are going with your music career. So remember, we are the future of music.